Hey guys, welcome here. So what I'm going to be talking to you about today is I'm going to be talking to you about Scratch and a basic introduction on how Scratch works. So if you just type in scratch.mit.edu or click on the link in the classroom, it will take you to this page here. Please make sure you log in. So to log in, there's just simply the button here that says sign in. You click on it and you enter your username and password that you created. Now, what we have here is we have a whole bunch of different featured programs that were made by someone else. What we're going to do is we are going to discuss how you create your own program. So the first thing you need to do is you need to click on the create button. Now what this will do is this will take us to the interface that we are going to be working with in Scratch. Now Scratch is kind of like code.org where it's a block-based coding language. However, you have a lot more freedom. So first let's go and discover what we have where. So here's our file menu. If you click on that, you can save it. You can also save a copy to your computer. All right. Next, we have the title. So I can call this one Test 1. And now we have a very important button here. This is called the Share button. If you have this button, you're going to need to click on it at some point because this will allow me to edit your program and to see your program and to mark it. If this button is not here, you'll have to come and talk to me and we'll show you how to get it up there. It basically just means that there's something not validated with your email address, but we can worry about that later. What we have here is we have the green flag. So when we click that, the program runs. And when we click the red stop sign here, the program stops. This is your program window. This is when you click play. This is where you'll see your program. If you're making an animation, you'll see it here. If you see the game, you'll be able to play it in here. This is your sprite window information. So it's all this area here. So you'll have your different sprites that you can click on. They'll have their name, their location, their X and Y. So this whole thing is a grid with the center being X0, Y0. If we go to the right, X gets bigger. So if I click on him and I grab him, because you can move sprites around, you can just click on them and move them. Well, you'll notice that I can click on him. When I move him over to the right, X gets bigger. If I move him up, Y gets bigger. If I go down here, you'll notice that Y is a negative number. So from 0, 0, roughly, if this is 0, 0, going down will result in a negative. Going up will be a positive. Going left will be a negative. Going right will be a positive. So these are just the X and Y values of this whole grid that is here. We have the direction that he's facing, 90 degrees. We also have the size. Okay. To add a new sprite, we simply just click here where it says choose a sprite. Now we have a couple of options. We can upload a sprite that we made. We can get a surprise random sprite. We can draw a sprite, or we can choose a sprite. So if you're going to create your own sprites in like Pixlr or some other software like Paint, you can create them, you can save them, you can upload them. So if I go choose a sprite, it's going to take me to this window here. Now here are all my different animation or different sprites I can choose from. So let's add a red apple. So if I add a red apple, you'll notice the location is X is 77, Y is minus 35. Size is 100. So if I want to make it smaller, I can just make that a smaller number. Notice it gets smaller. If I want to make it bigger, I can make it a bigger number. It gets bigger. So let's make it size 40. Now, we have our apple. We can click on it and move it. Now, these are the starting locations for it. All right. The next thing here is the backgrounds. Right now, we have a white background. If we want to add a new background, we simply click on backgrounds, choose backdrop, and we can add our own, get a surprise one, paint one, or we can choose one. So if we click here and we choose, let's go blue sky, you'll notice that the background now is blue sky. Now I can click on it and it brings me, you'll notice that this area here changed. This is our code area. These are all the options for whatever is currently selected. So right now my backdrop is selected, so I have all the options for the code of the backdrop. Now if I scroll down, it gives me all the different options that I have for this backdrop. We're not going to get into that too much just yet. Let's look at the cat though. Right now the cat is flying in the air. We want to start him down at the bottom. So if I click on him and drag him, I can put him down here. The apple will say it's just over here. Okay. So now one thing you have to realize is when you add code to it, the positions of these objects may move. Now, if they move, you want them always to reset to the same spot. Otherwise, you might run into some problems. So to do that, we have to look here at the code window. Now, here are all the different options for code. Here are the different costumes each character has. So right now my Apple's selected, you'll notice that there's just one costume for Apple. If I click on the cat, you'll notice there's two. Why is there two? Well, if we look at it, you're going to notice that it makes it start to look like he is running or walking. All right, so this is how we can do animations in Scratch. We have multiple images, and we just switch between them. And here are all the different sounds the cat can make. To add a sound, you can go choose a sound, you can upload your own, get a surprise sound, you can record your own voice if you want to, or you can choose a sound. All right, please make sure you have headphones on when you're working with the sounds. So let's go to code and let's start to make our cat move a little bit. So the first thing we want to do is we want to set the starting location of the cat. Now right now you'll notice that the cat is starting at -184 and -109. So if we just go here and we go to X and Y and we put it on, it's sitting here, but it does nothing. Why? Because we need an event to start it. If we go to events here and we go when green flag is clicked, so we drag that over, that's going to be our starting block. Any of these blocks that kind of have this oval type top, these are starting blocks. You'll notice that this has a little divot in here and that it matches this divot in here. So we have to click on it and we drag it up. Now, when I click start, the cat will always go to this spot here. We should do the same thing for our apple, because we always want the apple to go to the same spot. So click on the apple, you'll notice there's no code here. So we have to go when green flag is clicked, then motion, and go to its starting location. Now, no matter what happens, the cat and the apple will always start in the same location. Now, there are commands to make them disappear, so what we also want to do is we want to scroll down, and we're going to go to the look section, and we're going to grab show, and we're going to make both of them show. Now there's a lot of different options here to choose from, and we're going to have lots of time just to explore and play around and try it out. All right. So now what we have here is we have our starting position and we show our cat. We have our starting position and we make our apple visible. Now what we are going to do is we're going to get our cat to move a little bit. So what I'm going to get him to do is I'm going to get him to, well, there's different ways to do it. We can change X by, we can move him, we can do all these different things. Let's start by moving him 10 steps and let's see what happens. So I click start, and you'll notice he moves 10 steps. I click start again and it doesn't look like he's moving because he's going back and then he moves. All right, let's try something else. Let's try glide to, instead of random position, whoa, you can glide all the way over there. If you click on this, it's going to go somewhere. All right, and you'll notice that when I click start, it starts always back here. So let's go, instead of random position, let's go to apple, and let's say we take 5 seconds. Okay, so he's going to glide up to the apple. He's floating to the apple. Boom. All right, now what we want to happen is when he touches the apple, we want him to say something. So let's look through here. Motion, no, that doesn't have anything to do if we touch it. Looks, oh, well, we want him to say something, so let's grab this because we're going to need this later. Let's keep on looking down. Sounds, no. Events, so these are all things that we would start with. No, that's not what we're controls. Oh, possibly we could use an if statement. Sensing, touching. Perfect. So what we can do now is we can go if we are touching, and now we go apple, say hello for 2 seconds. Now let's see what happens here. If I click start, he goes, 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 touches the apple and says hello. Now one thing you guys have to be careful of, the code runs in order. So this if statement runs after the glide. If instead you did a move and then you did an if statement, if touching the apple, you might have to put this in something called a forever loop. Because when we're doing collision detection, we always want to check if two things are touching. So if we instead wanted to do that, what we could do is we could add a new when this green flag is clicked, You can do that. You can add as many as you want. Then we can go to repeat or forever. These are the different controls. You have a repeat like we did in code.org. We have if statements like we have in code.org. We also have this thing here. This is a forever loop. Now you want to be careful with how many forever loops you put in, because if you put too many, it's going to slow down your computer. So now if we move this over to here, this will continually check to see if the cat is touching the apple. And when it does, it will say hello. So you'll notice it happened a little bit earlier because it detected that it touched the apple before the glide was done. All right. Now, what do we want to do next? When he touches the apple, we want the apple to disappear. So what we can do is we can do something called a broadcast. So if we go back to the cat, we can do this here. We can put in another if statement, or even since we know it's going to be in here, we can put it in there. So we'll go to events and we'll go broadcast. And a broadcast is a way that two different sprites can talk to each other. So let's go down here and let's go new message. Let's call it Apple be gone. We click OK. Now, once this says hello, it's going to say Apple be gone. It's going to broadcast this. And now we can go into the Apple. And when we go into the Apple, we go to when I receive. And it already has Apple be gone selected. There'll be more in here the more broadcasts you have. But what do we want to happen when the apple is touched? We want the apple to disappear. So we would then go to looks and we would go hide. So now what happens is when we click start, we'll go and watch very closely what happens to the apple. It's over the cat. But if we move the cat, it's gone. All right? And that is why we needed to make sure we put the show there, because if we don't, it will just disappear and never come back. So we can also change the order of this if we wanted to. We can do this and let's see if this changes anything. Once the cat comes, it touches it and the apple disappears. Okay. We can also use the broadcast to change the backgrounds. So how would we do that? So what we can do here is we can do the apple. When it receives apple be gone, after it hides, we could use wait, let's say, wait 2 seconds. And these are just random numbers. And then we can go to backdrops. Now we have to add a new backdrop first. So let's add a new backdrop. Let's add Arctic. And now we can go to events. Sorry, not events. We'll go back to the apple for a second. We'll wait 2 seconds. Let's broadcast. And now we need a new one. So let's broadcast new message. Let's say call it background change. Or let's just call it back change. We'll click OK. Now what happens is if we click on the background itself, when I receive, grab it, back change, we can then go to looks and we can just scroll up here and we can go, oh, looks, switch background to Arctic. Now here's where a problem could arise. If I click start, the Arctic one automatically starts because that's where I was last at. However, I always want it to start with the field. So to change that, I have to go to events, click on when green flag is clicked, go back to looks, and I can switch background to blue sky. Now when I click start, it starts at this background, the cat moves, touches the apple, apple disappears, counts to 2, and goes to the Arctic background. Alright, so this is how we can communicate between the cat, the apple, the backgrounds, all that type of stuff. Alright, so let's restart it here. Now, when we have our cat, we have lots of different options, lots of different code. We're going to get into all of this. But what I want you to try right now is I want you to play around with some of this. Have some fun. Put some sounds on. Make sure you have your headphones on. Play with some sounds. Change the backgrounds. Have some forever loops. Have some if statements. Put some different loops in here and repeat statements and if statements, and try different things and see what happens. All right, there's lots of different options for code in here. So what you're going to do is you're going to use this knowledge that you've got to just play around in here for the next 15 to 20 minutes or so. And then you guys will be getting your next assignment. All right? Perfect. So if you have any questions, make sure you ask. Otherwise, best of luck and have some fun.